Hi guys, so today's video is going to be a non-spoiler book review for Queen of Blood by Sarah Beth Durst, the first book in an adult fantasy trilogy, and it's actually quite short, which is quite refreshing considering that most adult fantasy books are chunky. To be perfectly honest, in a lot of ways, this book doesn't exactly fit my personal tastes, but I still ended up really enjoying it. I would say if I was one to give very subjective star ratings, which I don't really do, but if I did, I think I would give this 4 stars simply because that last star would have been the other things that I tend to really enjoy, which would be extremely character-driven stories where I feel very invested in what happens to the characters. I want to know all their emotions, I want to know what they're thinking and how they're feeling all the time, and you definitely do not get that with this book. It's far more plot-driven. And I also think the thing that shines in this book is the setting. And I think that those things, I would even consider, if I were to have given it a star rating, saying 4.5, because those elements of the story I thought were done quite masterfully. And if you really like plot-driven stories, and if you really want a super cool setting, then this book, check it out. So the setup for the story, the plot and the setting, they very much go hand in hand. They're very much woven together. We have this world that is primarily in the forest. People live in the forest. They live kind of in the treetops, and they've built entire civilizations in these treetops. How they navigate through the forests is almost like the Zipline System, which is really cool. Sometimes they go to the forest floor in order to get from one place to the next, but generally they avoid it because in their world, this forest allows them to live there because of these spirits. And when we say spirits, we don't mean alcohol, but we also don't mean ghost-like things or anything like that. It's spirits in that they're just these monster-type creatures. They're so different one from the next, and they're all super unique. One of them is this hybrid woman and an owl, and it's even kind of person height, shape. And then there are other things that are more like trees and roots or bird-like dragon things, and they're all so different. And sometimes they sound kind of cute and lovely, and then other times they sound terrifying. And all of them are united in that they have basic instincts to create and slaughter people. The reason that these two instincts go hand in hand is because they want to provide life. It's what makes the forest function. Without this kind of magical bond that people have with the spirits, which I'll get into in a second, without that bond, the spirits wouldn't function really, and then they wouldn't allow the forest to grow. And while it would be nice and peaceful to not have spirits want to kill everybody, it also would mean an end to their civilization. So they have this very tumultuous relationship with these spirits. And the other part of it where they want to kill everybody is partially because of the fact that these things that they create and want to protect, the forest, all those things within the forest, like the water and heat and all of the more elemental type things, humans obviously have an impact on those things. In order for humans to live, it requires them to cut into trees, and it requires them to eat things from the forest and those sorts of things. So the spirits have this desire to kill everybody, but also desire to create life. In order to keep the spirits in check, there is a queen among people, and humans have some magical abilities to guide spirits into doing certain things, and usually that for the queen means ordering them not to kill everybody. And so they have a queen at all times who is the one that controls the spirits to an extent and keeps them from killing the population. However, obviously the queen isn't going to live forever because she's a human, and so they have to train a new person in the event that something happens to the queen, whether it happens prematurely because she's murdered or something of that sort, or because of old age at some point she's gonna die, or if she just starts to lose her magic and then she's no longer able to really control the spirits. So you have this kind of magic school setting for a little bit of the book, and that is where we see a lot of our main character Delena's, her story progress. So Delena is somebody who very early in the book saw a lot of bad things happen because of the spirits. And the reason that this story is so, I would say, heavily plot driven is because you do follow, in this very short amount of time, 300 and something pages, you follow this character from the time she's a little girl up into teenage years, early adulthood, I would say. And this particular character, after witnessing these atrocities, decides, okay, well, I know I have a little bit of magic, so I'm going to do everything in my power to get to this magic school and become the best of the best and see if maybe it's possible that I can be an heir, is what they call the girls who have the potential to become the next queen. The other main character in the story is a disgraced knight who you get bits and pieces of his past and his relationship with the current queen, and clearly there was some juicy stuff that went down between those two, but now he is disgraced and he kind of just wanders the forests, and he decides it is his obligation to take on an apprentice and train them out in the forest in the event that something happens to the queen. That is a role that he primarily would take on before he was disgraced, but he's like, I need to do this anyway. It's my job. And so this is where his and Delena's paths intersect. But within this relationship between Delena and this disgraced knight, you have almost a mystery in the story because Delena's past heavily is revolving around an event that occurred with the spirits, and the spirits not really being held in check, which means something's going on with the queen's power. That could be because she's losing her power, or it could be because she's letting those things happen, or she's doing those things to an extent. You don't really know. You do get snippets here and there with the queen, and so you get pieces of it, but you're still left kind of like, what the heck is going on? I do think that if the author had wanted, she could have expanded this first book into more than just one book. I mean, of course, there are sequels, which I am excited to get to, especially after the ending of this one, which is very intense. But I do think that she could have expanded on a lot of the elements. She could have spent more time with the character in the various stages of her life, Delena's life. She could have dived deeper into the relationship between the queen and the disgraced knight. Those are the things that probably would have been a little more up my alley. And so if she had taken the time to expand on those things, I would have enjoyed it. But that said, I enjoyed it anyway. I do appreciate having a story that I enjoyed that had such a cool setting, so unique, creepy, sometimes really disturbing, but also a hint of mystery. And you are rooting for Delena in her studies. I definitely think that she wrote a great story in a short amount of time and covered a lot of time. I don't normally gravitate toward plot-driven stories, but as far as plot-driven stories go, this one is definitely my cup of tea. I don't always mention necessarily other people's perspectives, but I do want to comment on this because I don't agree with this, but I just hope that this is going to have you go in with more well-rounded expectations. I did see some negative reviews that said, a fair amount of them, which was really bizarre to me, but a fair amount of negative reviews said that this book, it spends too much time on details and it goes on and on and on about things that aren't that important. And the reason that I'm bringing this up is because that normally drives me crazy, and I didn't really think that was the case at all in this story. So I partially think this is due to the fact that this is considered young adult by some people, and I don't know if it just gets miscategorized because it's shorter and the writing style is pretty straightforward and sometimes a little cheeky. But either way, I think if somebody goes into this story expecting a very young adult feel, then the descriptions of the setting, the spirits, those sorts of things, I think those descriptions maybe would feel too detailed if you're expecting them to be more in alignment with what you're used to with young adult. But if you read a mix or you primarily read adult, I feel like you would never think that. I don't know, maybe that's just me, but I absolutely did not think that it was too detail oriented or that the author dragged on and on and on about certain things. I thought she was very succinct. I do want to note that this particular story has a few scenes that are a little, kind of a lot, graphic, and they're short, they're not overly grotesque and go into great detail for shock value and things like that, but there are a few scenes in here that are just a hint like, there's one in particular. If you're the kind of person that gets claustrophobic, it's quite the scene, I would say. And I actually do want to comment on the author's ability to make you feel the anxiety and the anxiousness that whenever the spirits do all of a sudden want to kill people, oh my gosh, are there scenes where you're just like, ugh! I mean, that's a terrible description. I just made a noise. But it makes you feel super anxious. I obviously did quite enjoy this story. However, if you find that you are like me, but even more so when it comes to how strongly you want to get to know the characters, then this might not be the book for you because of the large amount of time that passes, especially with there are a few instances where it talks about romantic encounters or things like that. You're really not going to get the tension that you might want from those sorts of scenes or relationships because it's kind of just like, and then now they like each other. And I wouldn't even say it's insta-love. It's just that time passes in the story. And so the progression of relationships sometimes might happen a little faster than you would want. I just think in general, if you're the kind of person that really does not like a lot of time passing by, then you are just probably going to be incredibly frustrated with this book. That's it though for my non-spoiler review of Queen of Blood. Definitely let me know if you've read it, what your thoughts were on this, and then let me know if this sounds like something that you would be interested in picking up. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all later.